Welcome, everyone, to this pressing conversation, The Right to Belong in Assam, brought to you by Hindus for Human Rights. I'm Sravya Tadepalli, the Deputy Executive Director of HFHR. For those of us joining us for the first time, HFHR provides a Hindu voice in support of human rights worldwide, particularly in the defense of human rights in South Asia. Our work is rooted in the values of peace, truth, and justice as we fight for a more equitable and just world. We are working hard to mobilize Hindus in America and the world over to wake up to the horrors taking place in their name and to stand for inclusive values. Part of our purpose in bringing this program together is to right a terrible wrong, the silencing of those of you who are advocating bravely on Assam. The other part is to get Hindus to open their eyes to the horrors and come over to the side of truth and justice. Today's conversation covers the state of Assam, where its Muslim population has endured intimidation, violence, and expulsion. Located in the northeast of India, the state has become a laboratory for India's treatment of its Muslims. In the world's largest democracy, the world's largest religious minority is facing institutional subjugation and violence. In Assam, where the Hindu nationalist Bharatiya Janata Party has maintained power for just about a decade, the case is no different. In Assam, the BJP has solidified its Hindu nationalist vision of a Hindu Rashtra, or Hindu-only nation, through statewide policies excluding Muslims from economic participation, forceful displacement, and questioning their citizenship. This vision is spearheaded by its chief minister, Himanta Biswa Sarma. Sharma's election platforms in 2016 and 2021 bore the marks of RSS's and the Hindu right wing's typical othering of Muslims. In the campaign for re-election, he animated his voter base with the fear of the Bahiragata, referring to Muslims as outsiders of Bengali origin. He called Muslim women childbearing machines and promised to alter constituency boundaries in the state to limit the Muslim vote. The passage of the Citizenship Amendment Act, or CAA, led to widespread protests in the state of Assam, as in other parts of the country. The act fast-tracks citizenship applications for non-Muslim citizens of India's neighboring countries. Sharma has downplayed the importance of CAA's implementation in Assam. However, the truth speaks differently. Thousands of Muslims have been kept in detention centers, of which little is spoken in mainstream media. Foreigner tribunals have arbitrarily decided the nationality of detained individuals. Simple errors of language illiteracy and name spellings can lead to one being declared an illegal foreigner. Bengali-speaking Muslims have been disproportionately targeted, and their detention and declaration as doubtful voters or D voters is seen as an attempt to disenfranchise them. Sharma has led the charge in displacing Muslims in the state. Between 2021 and 2022, his government unlawfully converted 1,400 Muslim Authority-run schools into public government schools. Custodial killings of Muslims and unlawful detention of more than 3,000 primarily Muslim civilians have defined Sharma's Islamophobic tenure as CM of Assam, in which he has also accused Muslims of waging jihad by flooding Assam and poisoning crops with fertilizers. Reports indicate India has tried to unlawfully deport between 1,500 and 2,500 Bangladeshi residents and Bengali Muslims to Bangladesh from multiple states. Bangladesh's border forces claim to have turned back at least 100 deportees. In the most recent spell of troubles, vigilante groups backed by the Hindu nationalist state government are forcefully displacing Bangladeshi and Bengali-speaking Muslims. After a Bengali-speaking Muslim was accused in a rape case in East Assam, Assamese ethnic groups have fanned out across the state, issuing ultimatums to Bangladeshi migrants, Bengali-speaking Muslims, and migrant laborers to leave the state immediately. Ethnic Assamese groups have launched a Mia Kheda Abhiyan, expelling Muslims campaign, to identify Muslims and Bengali speakers and coerce them to leave the state. The term Mia is a pejorative slur for Bengali Muslims. It has been used by Assamese ethnic groups extensively, labeling Muslims as infiltrators, criminals, and illegal immigrants. With us today are two human rights defenders and a journalist whose courage has made a lot of the information above accessible to the public. Dr. Sayeeda Hamid is a former member of the Planning Commission of India and the National Commission for Women. She is a founding member of the Muslim Women's Forum. She is a social justice activist and educator known for her commitment to protecting the rights of marginalized communities and women. For decades, she has highlighted the issues faced by Muslim women across the country, prompting nationwide inquiries and policy responses. Dr. Hamid was a part of a civil society delegation that visited Assam in August to investigate the illegal evictions and unlawful removal of civilians due to citizenship issues. She was attacked for her comments upholding the rights of Bangladeshis, and Chief Minister Sharma accused her of anti-Assamese sentiment. She is also an advisory board member with HFHR. Harsh Mandar is a social rights activist, author, and columnist. He founded Karwan-e-Mohabbat, a campaign providing solidarity to victims of religiously motivated hate crimes and violence. The campaign provides legal support to victims and advocates for their public interests. He is the director of the Center for Equity Studies, a nonprofit research organization in Delhi. Previously, he served as a special commissioner to the Supreme Court of India in the Right to Food campaign and also sat on the National Advisory Council of India. Harsh Mandar was also a part of the civil society delegation. In the past, he has publicly challenged the misuse of citizenship law against marginalized groups in Assam, for which the chief minister even threatened to jail him. Harsh is also a dear friend of HFHR and has partnered with us on many projects. Arshad Ahmed is an independent journalist based in Assam. His coverage focuses on human rights, politics, and environmental issues. His writing has covered the declining state of minorities in Assam, their conditions in detention centers, and their displacement and expulsion from their homes. His work has appeared in Al Jazeera English, Article 14, People's Archive of Rural India Network, and other publications. As you can see, we are joined by voices unshakable in their commitment to truth-telling. And for that, we are thankful to you for joining us, and we also thank everyone in the audience for being a part of this webinar. As we start our conversation, I'd like to encourage all participants to use the Q&A feature to submit questions. You can do this at any point in time, and we will answer your questions in the final round. So with that, let's start with Arshad. Arshad, can you take us to the ground right now and tell us about the most recent spell of displacement faced by Bengali-speaking Muslims and Bangladeshis in the state? How did this start?
Thank you, Sarvia. Thanks to everyone for having us. I would like to. I mean, the recent. I would like to go to the recent spate of eviction drives that took place. That has been going on in Assam for the last 3 to 4 months. The last one being this eviction drive in Uriamghat. It is a region in Assam, in eastern Assam, Golaghat district that borders Nagaland. And this area has been contested by both Nagaland and Assam for since the 1980s. The roots of which go to colonial India as well, when the British, drew the line drew the borders rather ambiguously. So, just to give you a context, all right, I mean, 1,500 families were brutally evicted from at least 12 or 14 villages in Uriamghat, in and around Uriamghat, right? And they are all Bengali speaking Muslims. They were not, and I even investigated these cases, and there are reports that like non-Muslims were spared. For example, there are these villages in clusters, the cluster of villages, right? One home is a Bengali Muslim household, the another is a Bodo household, tribal household. The notice was only served to Bengali Muslim. The homes which was bulldozed was only belonged to Bengali Muslims, and not even and now there is a history to I mean to why there is also political messaging why this thing happened in Uriamgad, because Hemanta wants to whip up uh, anti-Muslim sentiments in eastern Assam and just to project into a messiah. But just to give you flesh out the context for you, in the 1970s, Gulab Borbora, who was the then Assam chief minister from the Janasangh party, from the Janasangh party, uh, invited ethnic communities, including Miyas, to settle in this area. The reason the Nagas, since this is a contested area, the region is called DAB, Disputed Area Belt, because Nagaland, since the Nagas since 1980s have been taking claim on this land because they said these are our villages and the land belong to us. And I mean, the so since the 1980s or ever since the Nagaland was created from Assam in the 60s, Nagas from the bordering, the Nagas would storm into these areas, right? And he would harass the Assamese. Okay, he would harass them and bully them, right? So the then chief minister, he thought that, to, pull the plug on this, it's better to invite these communities, right? And and make them and settle them on this area to thwart the, encroachment from the Nagas. So he has been, he did that, I mean, the Bodos, Karvis, Rabhas, these are tribal communities, along with the Bengali Muslims, they were, settled on these areas, and they have lived in this area for 3 to 4 generations. I mean, I have found people who have lived in the like in those villages for close to 50 years, right? They have government, they were also the beneficiary of many government schemes, welfare schemes. They were given houses, electricity, right? Anganwadi center, you name it. But this, I mean, this June, okay, I mean, the right-wing Hindu national, Assamese Hindu national government, they demolished, they selectively evicted only the Bengali Muslims, right? Calling them so-called illegal immigrants or Bangladeshis, while sparing the non-Bengali, the non, the Muslims. Their justification was that, they did not enjoy the rights under the FRA, the Forest Right Act 2006. But now there is a catch. The section of one of the sections of the FRA say that if people outside of tribal communities had lived, in a certain area for about 3 generations, they can take a claim on those, to the land. But in this case, they were blatantly and quite flagrantly evicted and targeted and disproportionately, I think, displaced 1,500 families. And that's the most recent one. I mean, so far, I think the state government since 2016 evicted over 17,000 families, I would say, right? And most of them are, I mean, you could see there are now settlement camps in Assam, right? I mean, Harsha visited, uh, I mean, there are some in Gwalpar also. They are living under tarpaulin shanties. The state government is disproportionately targeting one community, just one community. They're sparing others, and they're coming up with, lame excuses and some otherworldly justification, right, to legalize these extrajudicial eviction rights.
Thank you for sharing, Arshad. Then I think that pretty clearly labels what the motivation and what the state government and central government are trying to do. So it seems like Dr. Saida is having some technical difficulties, so we'll come back to her if she's able to get into the Zoom call. But for now, Harsh, you were part of a civil society delegation along with Dr. Hamid and have worked in Assam for years, challenging the government's weaponization of the new citizenship law and its creation of human suffering through statelessness. Could you tell us more about the law itself and how it is being administered and how accountability is getting subverted?
Shravya, it's a really long and complicated story, and I'll try to. But I think we need to understand the story of Assam is somewhat distinct from the story of other parts of India. Muslims are under attack in many parts of India in a very extreme kind of way. But the story of Assam is distinct. There's a history. Assam, it was one country. And over the last 200 years, people from what is now Bangladesh did come in large numbers as part of colonial policy. They were settled because they were hardworking and they worked in very difficult areas, made paddy fields in the river islands and so on, and have been living there. So in the late 70s and 80s, an agitation started where there was an anxiety by uh, Assamese people who were not of Bengali origin, saying that they wanted people who were foreigners, meaning Bangladeshis, to be evicted. And there was violence, there was a huge massacre in Delhi, and finally there was a resolution. And there was an agreement that there would be a legal process to identify people who were foreigners, and they would be made to leave. Now, this got complicated with, again, fast forwarding. Uh, the kind of discourse, public discourse, was as if there are literally millions of Bangladeshis who are sort of illegally, coming into Assam, and the indigenous people are losing, land, and the indigenous language and culture is getting submerged. This was the kind of discourse, and it was encouraged by the Indian establishment as well. And then the Supreme Court passed a very worrying order where it said that the burden of proof to every Assamese resident had to prove that they were Indian citizens. But it was the burden of proof was shifted on every citizen and not on the state. It wasn't the state which had to prove that you were a non-citizen, but that the citizen had to prove. It's like if there's a robbery, you don't go and collect evidence and say this one is the one who's committed the theft. You're saying, in effect, I believe everybody is the robber, and you have to now prove that you weren't the robber. And on the basis of documents that are very, very hard to hard in a country for very poor people that don't go to school, there isn't a system of documentation, don't have land records, etc., etc. So this led to a process in the national NRC, the National Register of Citizenship, went on for about 6 years and caused enormous suffering. And people were put into detention centers, uh, uh, and the detention centers were actually in jails. They were jails within jails. And people were kept there indefinitely for years. And there was, you see, the problem was that there was no way you could repatriate them to Bangladesh, because Bangladesh had to accept, they had to accept that they were Bangladeshis. Bangladesh had to accept them, but that wasn't the case. So they were effectively locked up in really horrible circumstances. The families, men and women and children, were separated, and they were living in violation of international law, of constitutional rights, etc. I, was appointed by the National Human Rights Commission to be their special monitor for minorities, and I insisted that I would go into the detention centers, and I found really, I mean, it was one of the most hellish places that I saw, because in a jail at least you have some rights. Here you don't even have those rights. So people were locked up there, women who just, I mean, the amount of suffering. So I came out, I fought a long case in the Supreme Court and so on. So now, very slowly, under very difficult circumstances, are people getting released from these detention centers. People committed suicide. There was enormous suffering. The end of the NRC process, where they said there are millions of Bengali Bangladeshis. They actually found only 1.9 million people, 19 lakh people, who couldn't prove their documentation, of which only 4 lakhs, or 0.4 million, were Bengali Muslim. And so it just, now with the BJP coming up and the RSS, etc., the Assam movement was never a movement against Muslims. It was a movement against people of Bengali identity because of the anxieties of land and indigeneity. What it has got transformed into, especially with the present chief minister, is a massive hate campaign against Bengali Muslims, people, I mean, Assamese of Bengali origin who are of Muslim identity. And he's created an extraordinary, well, the kinds of allegations he makes on a daily basis, hateful allegations about them, accusing them of every conceivable jihad, some of which you spoke about. Like if Guwahati gets flooded, he says that's a flood jihad. If prices of vegetables goes up, he says that's another kind of jihad, etc. Now, what he has done now, and I think what we need to understand is it goes, I mean, we have seen bulldozers being used for retributive violence against Indian Muslims in every BJP ruled state in a massive way. But what is happening in Assam is something that goes even further, because here it is a project of ethnic cleansing and a frank, I mean, it's not hidden. He keeps saying, I am going to remove the Bengali Muslim and give their lands to indigenous people. I'm told 125,000 acres of land have been vacated through these demolition processes. And some of it is going to big companies like Adani, and the rest of it is going to indigenous people. But the Bengali Muslim is as much a citizen in the largest numbers of this country, as even proved by the NRC. And yet they're being subjected to this kind of ethnic cleansing. I mean, Arshad has written describing it like an apartheid regime, and I think he said that with a lot of courage. But it is truly a process of apartheid, which is being imposed by the state with lawlessness. I mean, it's a completely lawless process. And the last thing I wanted to emphasize in this really complex story is the recent move of what they call pushback. Now, pushback is not repatriation. Repatriation, as I said, is something that will happen through a legal process. The High Commission of Bangladesh and India would sit together. They would collect, present the evidence that this person is a Bangladeshi. They would investigate and they would hand them over. But they can't do that. So what they're doing is what they're calling pushback. So pushing back means that from this end, we have the border security force. People are picked up. I mean, people have even been picked up from Mumbai or far away, from Delhi, flown into the border of, say, Agartala, Tripura, because that's a BJP ruled state, and pushed across the border. And they at gunpoint at this end. The Bangladesh border security force is also, pointing guns at them, and hapless people are somehow trying to, find their way through all of this. It is a horrifying situation of lawless, targeted hate, targeting a significant section of the Assamese Indian population for their religious identity and their language identity. And it's a very dangerous, worrying process. And ethnic cleansing is against international law, gravely against international law.
Thank you, Harsh. And I mean, when I just think about everything you're saying, I'm also thinking about what's happening in the US right now with ICE and how they're kind of, breaking civil liberties like never before when going after people. But I think also one of the key differences is India is going after its own citizens just on the basis of its religion, whereas we've seen a little bit of that in the US, but not nearly to the same extent. So I think Dr. Saeed is still having some technical difficulties. So going back to Arshad, in your writing, you have covered border security forces, detention centers in Assam, and how people, and you've described Muslims evicted and forced into Bangladesh as foreigners in both nations. What are the options for those who are displaced? And what are the actors and groups responsible for enforcing these expulsions?
Yeah, I will like to address the later part of your question. What is the effect, like, who are responsible for these, right? Am I audible?
Yeah.
Right. I think it's in Assam's case, it's not the BHP or Bajrang Dal, it's the whole state apparatus. It's your DC, it's your FT member, it's your circle officer, the revenue officer, and it's your border police, which is the equivalence of which is the ICE in the United States.
Yeah,
Right.
FT
And
is the Foreigners Tribunal, so which has been appointed. It's a quasi-judicial body
yeah,
to hear and decide whether somebody is a foreigner. Over to you, Arshad.
right. Okay. So now they the, the state government has invoked a partition era law, right? So, the Immigration Expulsion from Assam Act 1950, which is the partition era law, right? And they have now formulated SOPs. And if you go through the SOPs, it's just, too, I mean, just too appalling. So now they have entrusted the DC, the Deputy Commissioner of a district, with powers, extrajudicial power to deport anybody. Okay, if the deputy commissioner prima facie, facie finds someone as a so-called Bangladeshi national, right? And the time period that the deputy commissioner would give to the suspected national is just 10 days. So one individual has to prove themselves as right as an Indian within inside 10 days. And another thing is, I mean, the burden of proof, like the onus of proving citizenship lies on the individual. It's not on like it doesn't lie on the state, rest on the state. Uh, so I mean, it's a bit farcical to think about it. Okay, what is happening in Assam now and how people can be deported right now. It could be anyone, it could be me, it could be anybody else. Okay, I mean the border police could tomorrow report now with the SOPs in action. Like they could come to my house and just say that okay, no, say that I conclude that I am a Bangladeshi, and the next thing could happen is I them pushing me back like to Bangladeshi border. Now coming to the first part of the question, what options do they have? Well, I mean, except for filing petition in the Guwahati High Court and Supreme Court, they do not have any other options. And and the government is making sure that they do not allow these people to move to file petition in the Guwahati High Court. The state chief minister himself stated that we are we are adopting this pushback a mechanism so that we could avoid legalities, like we could we could disallow these people to file a petition in the Guwahati High Court or in any other constitutional courts. Right. So I mean, they do not have any other options to be I mean, to be very honest, right? They have nowhere else to go. I mean, it's what's happening and what's going to happen to these people, we don't know. They do not have any legal recourse. 10 days of time. I mean, I mean, it takes months to gather, documents right, to file, to make a case for themselves and to file the case in the Guwahati High Court and the Supreme Court. But the state is now giving only 10 days. Another concern coming from the SOP is the power which the state would be vested on the deputy commissioner. Now, considering the deputy commissioner, he is not someone who has expertise in examining documents. The state hasn't even clarified how the deputy commissioner would just like he would conclude that this person is from Bangladesh, right? What documents that he would need to examine. Another thing is, and there is every chance that the deputy commissioner could be swayed by political agenda or for his personal bias to deport to conclude that this person is a Bangladeshi national. I would also like to maintain that your documents do not matter in Assam. If the state wants to declare you foreigner, they would. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what documents you furnish before the deputy commissioner or before the FT member. And what is most threatening from this is how they are doing away with the FT, foreigners tribunal, the quasi-judicial bodies, as Harshal said. Previously there was still some semblance of hope. People could take legal recourse from these FT. I mean, they are also murdered in controversies, and they function like kangaroo courts, quite arbitrarily declaring people foreigners or minor discrepancies and all. But still people had hope. But right now, if you are giving 10 days time to prove citizenship, you do not have any other options. You can't. These people are poor, absolutely poor people living on the floodplains of Assam. They're illiterate. Some of them even do not even receive notice, and later they get to know that they were declared foreigners in an ex parte proceeding, meaning the FT would say that they did not turn up for the hearing. It's just threatening what I mean. I told as I would maintain, they do not have any legal recourse. But and again, I mean, just to add, okay, these are the whole state. In Assam, as I would say, it's not the BHP or some far right group. This the whole state, top to bottom. They're all complicit. They're all, conniving together to manufacture foreigners.
Thank you, Arshad. Yeah, I think just the sheer arbitrariness, like a lot of people thought, well, even with Citizenship Amendment Act, there might be some process for people to be able to prove their citizenship, but it's just completely arbitrary about who gets determined to be a foreigner. And there's not really a chance for people to defend themselves. And my assumption, we haven't really talked about this, but it's the people that are like the poorest, who don't have education, who don't have these documents, that are probably going to struggle the most with this. So
Yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah. I mean, the citizenship, the NRC thing, right? The
Mhm.
National Registered Citizen, that people, I mean, the Bengali Muslims themselves also, ushered it in, and they thought that, okay, now with this thing, it like the debate would be clear, right?
Mhm.
It would be settled for once and all, and then we would not be politically persecuted. If now that, our names like the people, I mean, the whole anxiety would be the anxiety over illegal immigrants and all would be dispelled once the NRC is concluded. But it was a futile exercise. It was a futile exercise. It was a neo-fascist, I would say, agenda. Right? It didn't do anything. And today itself, I mean, NRC, it was concluded in 2019. 1.9 million people were excluded. And Himanta also, the chief minister said that he revealed the data, the figure of the people who were excluded. He said that 7 lakh people were Muslims, 5 lakh were Hindus, and all of that. But the question is, even after the NRC was done away, like done and dusted, right? You have a list of people who are bona fide Indian nationals. Why is it? Why the question still remains that these people are Bangladeshi nationals? Why are they? That's the question. I told you, right. It's because a certain section of the Bengali Muslims have been racialized as illegal.
Yeah.
They're illegals. It doesn't matter. They are illegals right from what they wear, what they eat. It is never about documents. Had it been about documents, the NRC would have settled it,
Mhm.
right? They would have settled the debate, but it hasn't been the case. So it
Yeah.
was a futile exercise at one particular community, stuff like that. And the BJP did not even accept it after, the anecdotal data revealed that most of those who were excluded were Bengali Hindus. They did not
Mhm.
accept it, right?
Yeah. For Harsh, in 2019, you resigned as a special monitor for communal violence with India's National Human Rights Commission, citing government inaction on your reportage of detention centers in Assam. So this has been building up for a long time. Is there a wake-up call here for the rest of India? Like, what does this say generally about the human rights conditions of the country and the direction it's headed?
I think it truly is a wake-up call for the rest of India, because this idea of there's been this sudden overheating of this propaganda, which the Prime Minister chose India's Independence Day. The Independence Day speech is supposed to be the most landmark speech every year that the Prime Minister makes to the nation. And he spoke about what he called infiltrators, which is really like a dog whistle for India's Muslims. And he spoke about infiltrators all over the country and so on. And what has been happening, particularly after the Pahalgam terrorist attack, is that this sudden kind of paranoia, an artificial paranoia about these infiltrators all over the country. So what is happening is, since the terrorist attack, being a Bengali-speaking Muslim in any corner of the country has become extremely dangerous. And particularly if you're working, and Bengal is a state where Bengali working class people in general, Bengali Muslims in large numbers, have migrated to different corners of the country, from Kerala to the north, and so everywhere, especially where the BJP is in power, there's a sudden sort of drive to say that these are foreigners, and they're picking them up, taking them to detention centers. I live in Gurgaon, in Gurugram, in the National Capital Region, and we were witness to literally tens of thousands of people of Bengali origin, Muslims of Bengali origin, fleeing in terror and so on. We also went to Bengal. We found that people are coming from far corners of the country. Some of them are picked up, some of them are pushed, taken to the border and pushed across, some are put in detention centers. But every one of them is thrust into this into a situation of fear. I think the whole purpose is to create, I mean, the RSS never accepted the idea of India belonging equally to all people of all faiths, which was central to Gandhiji's freedom struggle. It was central to the core of the constitution of this country. Gandhiji was assassinated for this idea, and so on. So we have 200 million Muslims in India. I mean, there's no way, even if they wish to, that they can sort of throw them into the Bay of Bengal or the Arabian Sea. But what they've done, I mean, Hannah Arendt said, citizenship is the right to have rights. So through this, you're creating a climate where you're terrified about whether you'll have the right to have rights at all. So you're migrating to a place, you're trying to earn a living. You don't know when you can be charged with being a foreigner, when you'll be picked up. People of Rohingya refugees, again, we just have about 25,000 of them. They are in terror. We had this really unbelievable situation where, in fact, on the very day that the planes flew out after Pahalgam, the military planes, they picked up 40 Rohingya people in Delhi. They put them into a plane, flew them to Port Blair in the Andamans, put them on a naval ship, took them to the border of Myanmar and threw them into the sea with lifeboats. We're seeing a really horrific situation of attack, and the purpose is ultimately to instill a sense, you know, do I belong? Will I belong tomorrow? Will my belonging to this nation, the only nation I know, the nation my ancestors chose, the nation I love, that I've grown up in, suddenly, every day I'm in fear whether I will be accepted as a citizen or not. We're seeing that unfolding, and I think that, and in the light of what far-right leaders are doing from America to many countries in Europe, this you know this I recall during the CA protests, anti-CA the Citizenship Amendment Act protests in 2019, I traveled to many parts of the country joining the protests, and one of the things that Muslim women would say, and I'll say it in Urdu and then translate. They were saying कि हमें डर है, हमेशा डर रहा जाता है कि हम बेवतन हो जाएंगे. Bewatan literally, I mean, it's very hard to, it's a very poignant word. It literally means people without a nation, and this fear that of being made Bewatan, because you don't have documents, which I couldn't produce the documents. We are a partition family as well. I couldn't produce documents to prove my great grandparents and my parents, and I have no documents. And how will working class people in a country which has no tradition of older tradition of documentation. So that is the purpose is to place an entire community into a sense of fear that you have to keep proving your legal belonging to this country.
Thank you, Harsh. We finally have Dr. Saeed that was able to join us. So I'm going to turn to you next. You visited the state of Assam as part of a civil society delegation in the light of the most recent extremities. Could you share the key outcomes of the report, People's Tribunal on Assam, Evictions, Detentions, on the Right to Belong? And could you also tell us about the state of Bengali-speaking Muslims in Assam from your eyewitness account? Oh, you're muted, Dr. Saida.
Thank you so much, Shreya, and thank you for the patience. And finally, I've been able to get online. And so I've been listening to Arshad and I've been listening to Harsh. And so a lot of the questions that you asked, and there's not much time because we have to go by 9:30. So I want to say that being a Muslim woman, for me, it's exactly what Harsh has said. 200 million Muslims. Where are they going to go, into the Arabian Sea or the Bay of Bengal? And what happened to me in Assam, where I was with Harsh, and I think Arshad was there, or maybe not. I'm not sure. But was he there, Harsh?
He was there as well.
Okay,
Yeah, I was there.
Oh, Arshad, sorry. Okay. So when I have been to Assam very, very often to Assam since 1997. 3 years in the Planning Commission, 10 years in the 3 years in the Women's Commission, 10 years in the Planning Commission, and in between, innumerable friends. I've been to almost 40 to 50% of the districts. I really know. Okay, I love Assam, and my uncle made a beautiful film in the 1950s on Assam called Rahi. It was about tea garden workers. So as a little child, I was fascinated by all the tea gardens and everything. So so now flash to 2025. I'm with Harsh, I'm with Arshad, I'm with a few other colleagues, and so we hold a meeting, and we sort of we narrate and we relate our experiences, and we talk to an audience, and we get off the stage, and then there are and then the questions come to us, but not as targeted questions, as like bullets in our faces, like we experienced in Delhi, but gentler questions, but basically about these and these the Bangladeshis, and so my comment on that was, and I also will say it in Urdu, Hindi, and then translate it. I said, भगवान ने, अल्लाह ने ये धरती इंसानों के लिए बनाई है. अगर इंसान उसमें आते हैं, बांग्लादेशी आते हैं, तो बाइज्जत उनको रुखसत कर देना चाहिए. That the fact of that clip was used to report me to 19 or 17 police stations across the country, across the state, and then of course I mean I couldn't understand what had happened, because we came back to Delhi and we had a press conference again, and then you may have read or may not have read what. So basically, simply saying, and Harsh and I, we have traveled in many directions, in many places together. So having just to say that God has made this dharti, this land for human beings, and if Bangladeshis come, we should respectfully turn them back, and the kind of the conditions that Harsh talked about. I have not been eyewitness to those conditions in the detention camps, but it's something which it's unbelievable, unbearable, and the poorest of the poor, the wretchedest of the wretched. So these are the people, the women, the men, the children, and Harsh has been through everything. I have also been through it in an official capacity. So for me, Assam is so beautiful. I love Assam, and for me, Assam has now become like a like a catastrophic event in my life. For the first time, I used to feel like I'm one of everyone. I'm a Hindu, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Sikh, I'm a believing Muslim, and I'm a practicing Muslim. But for me, all religions were all religions were equally respectable for me. But today, to this time, I feel, I'm a Muslim and I'm a woman and I'm targeted for that. So anyway, that's my emotional response to Shreya.
Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Saeed, and I'm so glad you were able to join and we could hear about your experiences and what you've seen. So we have a final question from us, and then we have a question from the audience. So for this question, if you could just make it like a minute, then that will keep us on time. But we are here operating in the Indian diaspora, whether you're in the US or the UK or somewhere else. What can the people in the diaspora, both ordinary Indian Americans or political leaders, journalists, what can they do in order to address these issues and raise awareness about what we're seeing?
To begin with, I mean, I just said very briefly, I believe that all over the world, in country after country, with the kind of right-wing leaders, who belongs and who does not belong, and what is the conditionality of belonging, I think is the question. And we're creating, everywhere we're identifying vulnerable minorities as the threat, as the other, who does not belong, and who does not effectively belong anywhere. So in France and the UK, the president and prime minister meet, and the big outcome is how to keep away people in small boats, and so it's this same kind of fear mongering against vulnerable minorities that we are seeing in India. It's on a huge scale, because it's part of an ideological battle for 100 years of the RSS, which is, in fact, on October 2nd will complete 100 years. So I think that it has to go back to very fundamental questions of belonging, that you should not have to qualify to belonging by the color of your skin, by your form of worship, by what you eat, your gender, who you love, what you sing. That we have to conceive of a way of belonging without conditionalities, except adherence to the values of the Constitution. And that should be the only conditionality for belonging. And I think that that's really, it will be hard for you to do anything in the US when your government is doing the same thing, and so on in many countries in the world. So I think this is a larger civilizational question of equal belonging without conditionalities. Yeah.
Would anyone else like to comment on that? Okay. Otherwise, I'll move on to our anonymous. We received an anonymous question. So this person said, I recently dropped out of a national institution in India after facing relentless hatred and bias, not just from classmates, but even from faculty, some of whom openly targeted me in class because I am a Muslim. I also felt that some professors were reluctant to give me internal marks or even pass me on certain subjects. I tried to resist the hatred and fight the bias, but it was almost impossible because I was the only Muslim student in my batch. And these arbitrary practices are so deeply entrenched in the system that you're left with no one to complain to. As a result, these experiences took a serious toll on my mental health. I'm a Bengali origin Muslim from Assam, and I believe the discrimination I faced was rooted solely in my religious identity. So, my genuine question to the panel is this. If in the future I get the chance to join another institution and face the same kind of discrimination again, what should I do?
I think, Saida Appa, as an elder, why don't you start?
Well, I live in a university campus, which was founded by Muslims, and it is now, it has all religions in it. But anyway, this is a Jamia Millia Islamia. That is a university. Basically, it's an Islamia university, but it has every subject, and it's now. So I would, this is something which I have not really heard much. I have not heard about this kind of discrimination at the university level, and which you have faced. And I think that there are a lot of in your if you join another university and you have the same experience, I don't know how Harsh would feel, but I think the younger people, the younger generation is sensitized, and I think the younger generation should side with you, and they should join forces with you, and they should really, it's not you individually who should make go to the powers and to the decision makers, but a bunch of younger people who will have a force, and that kind of force you have to galvanize. So I think that young people do have that spirit, and they can stand with you. What do you think, Harsh?
Saida Appa, sadly, because I've been traveling around the country, I've heard similar heartbreaking stories actually over and over again, and even from very elite institutions. I remember, for instance, this young man, a very good-looking young Muslim man who was a medical student in Hyderabad, said his teacher was reading out the roll call and said, "Okay, and love jihad." And he said, "No, sorry, my name is this thing." No, I mean, but boys like you just do this kind of love jihad. And everyone started laughing. And it became his nickname for the entire class. Everyone called him Love Jihad. Or there was a well-known case I think, in another university in the south, where the teacher was reading out and read and called him Kasab. And he said, "Sorry, my name is not Kasab, it is so-and-so, so-and-so." And he said, "No, I was just..." And this young man refused to give up. And he said, "No, this is not a joke. You can't do this to me." And another friend who was non-Muslim actually filmed it while his response. And it went viral, and a lot of people stood with the student and so on. So it is sadly not at all uncommon, Saidapa, this taunting even by faculty. But the answer has to be the solidarity of other young people. And I hope it still will be there, because that's all we have to fight back. When the institutions have got communalized, then it has to be the citizen who stands together.
And younger and young people, a
Young,
horde of young people, galvanize, bring them
Arshad,
together.
Arshad, you're the youngest
Yeah,
person.
Arshad is a young man.
Tell us what you feel, and then I think.
I mean, it's like one has to hope against the hope, and you know, we have to. I mean, what lies ahead of us is just bleak, because everywhere else there is a communal fatigue. You go to UP, you could see a communal fatigue. You go to MP, communal fatigue. But Assam is on the boil, and each day you would feel bad. You would feel heartbroken for what a Bengali Muslim has to go through. You go and you speak to any Bengali Muslim, they have already conditioned themselves into believing that they are worse than humans. They're not even humans. And it is what breaks their heart is when they believe that the state could kill them in large number and there wouldn't be any protest for them on the streets of Guwahati. For example, in Digoli Pukhuri, which is in a park right at the center of Guwahati, Guwahati, when state government wanted to hack some trees for a redevelopment plan, large, the entire, Assamese civil society groups, the activists, the liberals, they all, got together to save those trees. Those were, very old trees. But when was the last time we saw the state together, probably protesting for the rights of Miyas? It's one thing that recently a cultural icon died, a cultural icon passed away, and the entire Assam got together to collectively mourn him. I'm referring to Jubin Garg.
Even the
And
Maulanas got together. Even the Maulanas were
yes,
in
that
December.
yes,
Yeah,
they were playing Mayabini, one of his chartbuster. Okay, the
exactly.
Maulanas were playing songs for him. That is, I don't think we have ever seen. So maybe there is hope, and we just have to.
Zubin Garg, he sang that song, Ya Ali, the one of the
Yeah,
most popular
absolutely,
songs, Ya Ali.
absolutely.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, one of my stories will be out for Al Jazeera tomorrow on this. It's a beautiful piece, and that talks about how in a communally fractured state, not the Indian state, got together, uh, celebrating, this cultural icon, why he meant so much to all of these people, right? So it's about this, identity crisis, which is this deep-seated in Assam. This, long-standing question of who is the so-called indigenous and who is not. And now, it is being decided in otherworldly ways, in extrajudicial ways. And it is being decided by the way you talk, by the way you look. Okay, I mean, they would call you Maiman Shingas, Maiman Shinga. It's another term. This is one thing that one is, I mean, just to add, and I think in all of
Maiman
the FT
Shikal.
orders,
What do you mean, Maiman Shikal? Say
it's
that
a
again.
district in Maimansingh.
Oh,
It's
Maiman.
Maimansingh.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, Maimansingh. It's a district in Bangladesh. So in the 1920s, our colonial lords, the British, they brought
Maiman
Bengali
Singh.
peasants, yeah, from Maimansingh's region, and
Yeah.
it became over the years it became a racist because the Assamese bureaucracy did not like it and they racialized it. To them, a Maimansingh is this peasant, Bengali Muslim peasant over the years, right? In all of these FT orders, you would see in overwhelming numbers of FT order, you would see the border police or the local verification officer would conclude that this person is from Maimanshing without a due investigation. They would conclude that this person is Maimanshing from their offices. How do you, right? Like from their offices, they would just say this person is from Maimanshing. And in reports after reports, it's not just in one report or two in FT order, right? In an overwhelming 700, 800, 9, I mean, in thousands, I think, as much as I could say. So maybe I don't, I mean, if I have to be honest, okay, maybe, I mean, the passing of Jubin Garg as a cultural icon, he kind of gave us hope that, okay, maybe, the state is collectively mourning, right? But I would say this is a sham. because people will forget about this camaraderie that we have seen on the streets of Guwahati. This is a sham. Assam, as I said, okay, where the communal fatigue is declining in the parts of India. Assam, it is the total opposite.
No,
It
no,
is the
it's not
total opposite.
declining either. Harsh will agree with me. It's not declining in India. The latest
Yeah.
terminology is Ghazwa-e-Hind, which is that thing. You heard about Ghazwa-e-Hind.
Yeah,
Really to
and
read about it.
ma'am, just to add to what happened with you, it also illustrates the situation in Assam. You said something so innocuous that was, very humane, and the way you were attacked, you could see, and the people who attacked you were the liberal ones in Assam. They were not the Sanghi type. They were not people from the RSS or the BJP, right? They were the Assamese liberals,
Yeah, Saida
right?
Appa, actually, it was struck me as grandmotherly advice to the young women who were, just find your humanity, be humane. That was all she was saying. And and if we can't listen to grandmotherly advice of just kindness and humanity, then we're in a big crisis.
And with that, we're just
So the thing is, how does the should I mean conclude this? How just
So,
okay,
no,
Um,
I think Ashok wanted to say something just for a
yeah,
yeah,
second.
just
go ahead.
okay,
Arshad, do you have a final thought?
Hmm.
yeah, just to add to what I was saying is how does one find hope? I'm a like hope under such political, identity under such political climate, right? I mean, though, just to answer that thing, I would say that it's a bleak world for us, and we have to soldier on. You have to find hope. You have to find beauty in this world, and there's nothing else. The more you think about it, the more hopeless it
So,
becomes for
so,
you.
so last word. Harsh has a beautiful portrait of my mentor, Maulana Abul Kalam Azad. And I was 1 hour ago, 2 hours ago, I was at a Sarvodaya meeting, and I quoted something from Maulana Azad, which Harsh knows, and I'm not going to quote it. And believe me, the people were quoting from others, and I got a standing ovation. So Maulana Abul Kalam Azad, standing ovation. He talks of Hindu-Muslim unity. Maybe there is a hope, Arshad.
But there is hope. Indeed, there is hope. But it's a long way ahead. It's a long way ahead, and we have to we have to soldier on. That's it. It's a very difficult time to navigate, you know,
I think
navigate with.
Arshad's anguish, spoken with so much courage, I know how much courage it takes, is probably what the listeners must take away from this conversation. A really fine, brave, thinking, sensitive young Indian is feeling so devastated. What do the rest of us? What are the rest of us going to do? I think that's the question I'd like to leave with all of us.
And I think with that, we'll close the webinar discussion. But thank you so much. I do think that's the message to take away, is there's a lot of terrible things happening in Assam, in the rest of India. Hindus for Human Rights operates with the understanding that in order to challenge these, we all need to be speaking up, especially those of us who are Hindus, speaking out against these atrocities, and this is part of that effort. So thank you all for attending the webinar. Thank you all of you for speaking on the webinar. And we hope to have you for our next event. Thanks. Bye.